Hey guys, hope you had a great Thanksgiving break. We're going to start off this new week. We're almost done. Our test is on Friday, but today we're talking about writing quadratic equations. So, in other words, we're kind of like talking about moving things between our different forms. So we know what standard form is, and whenever we graph equations, we have vertex form. But a very important thing for you to know is that you need to know how to convert things from standard form to vertex form, okay? So, of course, standard form is like this: ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants. And vertex form is this one, where we have my A, H, and K. So the main part of today's lesson is we're practicing moving from standard form to vertex form. Now, there's some easy things about this. The first thing is my A value in my standard form is going to be the A value in my vertex form. Both of those two things are the same. The second thing to keep in mind is we've seen this formula before. This h equals negative b over 2a. We've seen that. Negative b over 2a, negative b over 2a. In other words, negative b over 2a gives me my axis of symmetry or the x of my vertex. Both of those things are the same thing as my h. And then lastly, to find my k, it's like finding the y of my vertex. We already know how to find the y of my vertex. We plug the x of my vertex in, and that's my k, or my y of my vertex. So let's take a look here at number 1. So our first step here on number 1 is we are going to be writing our equation. So let's go ahead, let's write out the equation. Let's fill in the gaps that we do know. So we have y equals, and I'm going to write out 2 times x, my parentheses squared, and then my h is going to go in the parentheses. My k is going to go here on the outside. So I just need to figure out what h and k is to put it back in my equation. So we know how to find, and notice how I put a 2 here. That's because my a is 2. And since my a is 2, that goes in front in my vertex form. All right. Now, we need to find what my h is. Now, my h is negative b over 2a. So we're going to go negative b, so negative 8, or opposite b over 2a, and a is 2. So opposite b over 2 times 2. That's going to be negative 8 over 4, which is going to be negative 2. So h, the h in my vertex, is going to be negative 2. Remember, this is my h, comma, k. So the h of my vertex is going to be negative 2. That means inside my equation, we're going to have a plus 2. All right, next, I need to find my k. To find my k, we take my h, which is negative 2, we plug it back in. So I'm going to plug my negative 2 back in. I'm going to go y equals 2 times negative 2 squared plus 8 times negative 2 plus 3. This would not be a bad time to get out your calculator, right? However, I'm just going to do this one in my head. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. 8 and negative 16 makes negative 8. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So my k is going to be negative 5. So that's my y equals. That's also my k equals. It's the y of the vertex or the k of my vertex or the k inside my equation. So that's going to be my k. We're going to have a minus 5 there on the end. And then lastly, we're going to talk about my transformations. So for this one, we look at my h and k. Remember, my h controls left and right, k controls up and down. So since my h is negative 2, we're going to go to the left 2. Since my k is negative 5, we're going to go down 5. And since we have a 2 there at the start, we're going to have a vertical stretch by 2. So by putting it in vertex form from standard form, we're able to see what my vertex is, we're able to see what the transformations are, and we're able to see what, is it going to be a stretch, is it going to be compressed, all of that. Okay? All right, let's move down here to number 2. Okay, so number 2, we're doing the same exact thing. So first, let's write out our little equation, y equals, hate it when that happens. Really don't know why it does that. Really don't know. Okay. All right, let's go down here, and we're going to write our equation. We're going to go y equals, my a is 4. Then we're going to find my b. So we're going to go y equals opposite b. So b is negative 32, so opposite b is going to be positive 32 over 2 times a, and a is 4. So it's going to be 32 divided by 8, which is 4. So my vertex part, my h, right, we have our h and our k, my h is going to be 4. Okay, that means in my equation we're going to have x minus 4 squared, and we're just waiting for what my k is. So we're going to take that 4 of my vertex, plug it back in to find my k. So we're going to go 4 times 4 squared minus 32 times 4 minus 5. Like I said, calculators are your friend. All right, 4 squared is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. 32 times 4 is negative, not 64. Let's see, that's going to be 128. So we're going to have negative 128 minus 5. Okay, 64 minus 128 is going to be negative 64. Negative 64 minus 5 is negative 69. So our k is going to be negative 69. That's our k, right? We just plugged it back in. We got our k value. And so we're just going to write a minus 69 here on the end. So what are my transformations? Well, with my a, we're going to have a vertical stretch by 4. With my k, let me write this on top. With my h, we're going to go to the right 4, because remember it's opposite of what's inside the equation, so we're going to go to the right 4. And my k, we're going to go down 69. Okay? All right, now let's go to number 3. So number 3, let's see here. We're going to have negative x squared plus 4x. We're going to write that in vertex form. So first off, my a is negative 1, right? That's my a, negative 1. So we're going to go y equals negative 1 times x something squared, and then we put on our h and our k. Okay? All right. So we're going to have a negative 1, so we can do this. We can go, now we're going to do opposite b over 2a. So we're going to go negative 4 over 2 times a, and a is negative 1. This is what my h equals. Negative 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is a positive 2. So h of my vertex is 2. Then we plug it back in, so we're going to go negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2. 2 squared is 4, so that's going to be negative 4 plus 8 is going to be positive 4. So the k of my vertex is positive 4. All right, so we're going to have with my h, we're going to have a minus 2 in here, and with my k, we're going to have a plus 4. All right, so about our transformations. So our transformations, we're going to go, first off, with my a, we're going to have a vertical reflection, which means my graph is going to open down. We're going to go to the right 2, and we're going to go up 4. All right, hopefully that all makes sense to you. Okay, all we're doing is our converting from standard form to vertex form. All right, next we're going to talk about a new form. Let's turn the page. Let's talk about this new form. We're going to talk about root form or intercept form. So this is a way where it's like factored out, and we just know what my roots are. Okay, so this is where P and Q are the x-intercepts. So we're going to minus the first root minus the second root. So let's take a look at number 4. First off, let me write out the equation in root form. It's going to be y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. We need to watch our p's and q's, all right? Okay, so then we're going to find what my roots are. So I'm going to have a root here at 1, 0, and I'm going to have a root here at 3, 0. Okay, so with that in mind, okay, with that in mind, my roots are 1 and 3, so I can fill that into my equation. We're going to go y equals a times x minus 1 times x minus 3. Now, we want to write my equation out fully, and to do that, I need to write it with an a. We don't know what my a is here, so to find my a, we plug in this. This says f of 0 equals negative 12. In other words, when x is 0, y is negative 12. This is pretty much saying that we have a point on my graph at 0, negative 12. So now I can kind of plug in. I can plug in a 0 for x, I can plug in a negative 12 for y, and I can find what a is, and then I can write out my final equation. So let's do that. Let's plug in negative 12 for y. We don't know what a is. This is what we're trying to solve for. Let's plug in 0 for x. And then let's solve. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Times those together, we're going to get 3a. So 3a equals negative 12. So we're going to divide this side by 3, divide this side by 3. And so 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. So that's going to be a equals negative 4. Now on your homework, you're going to see some fractions. Don't be alarmed by those, okay? But in this case, my a is a whole number. A is negative 4. So now think back to this problem, this equation right here. We're going to write that same thing, but instead of a just being there by itself, we're going to put negative 4 in for a. That way we get our full equation in root form. We plugged my roots in, I plugged in my point, solve for what a is, and then we just plug in a and my points back in, or a and my roots back in. So here's my original equation. We're going to go y equals negative 4 times x minus 1 times x minus 3. And there you go. There's the equation for this graph in root form. All right? Okay. Now, this is very good for us because we can just look at a graph, we can look at some points, and we can get an equation for it. Right? Our equations were like our roots, and then we have like our y-intercept, 0, negative 12. You know, let's try another one. This can be our last one, number 5 here. We're going to write the equation of the quadratic function with roots at 4 and negative 1. So remember our equation. It's y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. Now it tells me what my p and q are. So let's write this out. Y equals a times x minus my p, which is 4. And then x minus a negative 1 is going to be x plus 1 whenever we plug that negative 1 in. Then we just take our point, plug in our point, our 0 in for our x's, that number in there. Remember, this is like 0, 8. That's what that's saying. F of 0 equals 8, so we're going to plug in our zeros and 8. So we're going to go 8 equals a times 0 minus 4 times 0 minus 4. Then, 0 plus 1, that doesn't repeat. Plus 1. Okay, then, obviously this is negative 4 and 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4a. Divide both sides by negative 4, and we're going to get a equals negative 2. All right, or we can write it like this, a equals negative 2. So, now that I know what my roots are and I know what my a is, we can write my final equation of y equals negative 2 times x minus 4 times x plus 1. It's pretty much just this equation over again, but now we know what my a is. All right, guys, so there's the three main forms, right? Standard form, vertex form, and root form. Should be a print comma right there. Okay, those three forms, they're all on this paper. Go ahead and write them out and make sure you know them whenever you're asked for each particular one, okay? All right, as always, let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys.